Welcome back to The Donkey,
And the bee.
where men are jackasses,
And women are biatches.
where we work together to build an extraordinary life.
Tune in to up your game in your marriage, entrepreneurship, and finances. Welcome to The Donkey and the Bee. We got the jackass over here, and we got the biatch, where we live life together and telling you about all the ups and downs along the way.
So I want to share today about some bad hires that we've had over our businesses and the takeaways, the lessons we have, and really the stories of how we almost lost our business and had some really hard times through this whole thing.
It's one of those things when you first start a business, you think that you're going to hire these like perfect individuals and they're going to stay for the entire life of your company and you're going to have the best relationship and nothing is ever going to go wrong. And you have this unrealistic idea of what it actually is. And so when you get into it, at least maybe this is just me, maybe no one else has experienced this. But when you actually get into it and you actually start hiring people, you realize that they're a certain way during the interview and they're a certain way the first couple of weeks. And then you really get to know their true character along the way.
Hey, there's some that are pretty crafty and very not honest. So
Yes.
It was a very hard lesson that I learned. Maybe 2 years into business, we had our first company, our flipping company in California, and we were doing pretty well. And we were growing, and then we hired this individual. And within a couple weeks, I'm like, man, this guy is a rock star. He is just like doing so great, and he has like he can starting to like help out other team members and kind of taking over this role and that role. And so I, naive, right, young in business, started trusting this guy, giving him more and more responsibility over. He was only with us 4 to 6 months, not very long, right? Because it came crashing down. But the way he was able to communicate and express himself, and he was just a really good liar, honestly, and just tricked the crap out of me, honestly. And so we're in this growth stage. He is heading up dispositions. So he's selling our wholesale properties. We had a flipping side of the business and a wholesaling side, and we're getting a lot more contracts. We are like quadrupling the money we're spending on marketing. Lots of calls coming in, and we're getting all these contracts, and we have all these things on the whiteboard, right? We have, these deals, and we're buying them at a discount, and some we're flipping, some we're wholesaling. We had all this income, right? Like potential income on the board. And then all of a sudden they just start falling off. Just like amazing deals, just like weird, crazy things are happening. And it's like, man, how is that possible? Like this random occurrence can happen, and then it happens again, and then it happens again. And we're like, oh my gosh, like there's something not right here. Something's just not adding up. And so along this time of maybe like 6 weeks, this guy, I'm putting my trust in him, and I'm totally believing it. And he's really just kind of saying, hey, these systems here, these team members over here are kind of, this is what's going on. And I was so naive to the point where it came down to probably his last day until we fired him. He's telling me this story that, we have this property under contract, and the buyer that we have lined up, isn't going to wire. They're backing out. Something is going wrong, right? And I'm on the phone with the title company, and the title company is like, no, like we have the guy. He wants to do this. Like, and then I'm like, what's going on? So I bring the 3-way call on, and I'm like, hey, such and such person. I have the title department on the other line, and he literally just hangs up. And then I call him back. I'm like, hey, what's going on? We got the thing, and he hangs up. And like that was it. Like there was no 2 weeks, nothing. Like he just was gone. He was caught in his lie. So as part of this story, I mean, we had all this expenses going out, and this moment right here just rocked me because we were spending all this money with this anticipation that it's supposed to be coming in for the last couple months, and it did not come in. And we got to the point where there was no money left in the business account. Like I couldn't make the next week of payroll. And I looked at you, and I'm like, I was just like hollow. Like it was just like such a kick in the gut that someone would do this to me. And then we find out right after that all these deals that were kind of just falling off the board and all falling apart, he was going and selling them on his own and taking the commissions and cutting us out of the deal. And man, I was just devastated. And I think learned such a hard lesson from this about trusting people, because I honestly just trusted everybody. And now I don't really trust people very much. I trust, but I'll be very, very careful with that trust. Mm-hmm. And that was something that I think I've learned that lesson the hard way, and I for sure bring it all the way to this day.
I think what's frustrating about that story and rehearing it is that I had a gut feeling about this individual during the interview process. So I usually do the first interviews, and if I somewhat like the individual, I'll pass on Brett. And I literally was like, I don't even think I should pass on Brett. I don't know. There's something about this individual, and I couldn't pinpoint it. And I think looking back, I didn't need to pinpoint it. If I just had that feeling, or if I had that inclination that this person wasn't being honest, that they were a smooth talker, that I should have just trusted that. And I think that is something that I didn't learn that first time. I should have, because I made that mistake again with another hire. And I had that same feeling. And we had a conversation about it too, about this other person that we hired. And there was just something that wasn't sitting right, something that was a little off. And then I'm like, no, it's okay. Like maybe they were just nervous, or this, making excuses for people. And man, I think now that it's been 2, I feel like we've learned our lesson. But to be honest, there's probably gonna be people that still sneak by. But I think for me personally, I know that I don't need to pinpoint it to something. If I feel like something's off, or if I just sense that this person isn't a good fit, then I'm gonna trust that.
So it's interesting because the first person that screwed us and the second person that screwed us. So on the first one, we learned this lesson and we did a background check on him. And then finding out that he had all these criminal records, like cash fraud and all these different kind of financial fraud kind of stuff, right?
It didn't come up on the basic background check. We had to really do a deep dive in it. So that was another lesson learned. Yeah.
Okay, so we learned this on the front side. The second bad person that we hired did have a background. And this person came and said, hey, this story, right? Told us this story about it was an accident, blah, 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 wrong place, wrong time. Cool, all right, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I had really, really learned this lesson. I don't think you had gone through and had the pain that I had from this first individual, because it was just a couple months. I'm like, this person, they're cray, right? I see it. I know this pattern right here. This person is lying to us. Mm-hmm. But you weren't ready to accept that, or what was it that was there that you hadn't clicked that yet?
I think for me personally, it was more of a fear of, I didn't know this business. It was a new business to me, and it was all going to fall on me if this person wasn't here. And I think that's really what it was. There was a fear of the unknown, a fear of taking the reins on this business when not even knowing really the ins and outs and knowing what to do. And so I do think that was the reason why. I think that's the real root of the issue.
Because it went on for probably
way too long.
A year longer than it should have.
Way too long. It was a year and a half longer than it should have.
And I was for over a year, hey, we need to exit this person, right? It is time for them to go. Mm-hmm. But you weren't ready yet until you got to that one day and final
it was just
straw.
a final. It's one of those things where it got so bad that I didn't care. I just didn't care. I was going to just jump into that fear and jump into that. It was almost like I built this up in my mind for so long that it was going to be this really hard thing to let this person go. And once I let them go, yes, it was hard for, 4 to 6 weeks. It was really difficult, but we're through it, and I lived through it, and it actually wasn't as bad as I thought. I think we as humans tend to build things up in our own minds when it has something to do with the fear of ours. We think it's we take it to the extreme. And in most cases, that's not usually how it pans out. So I think there were multiple things I learned throughout that particular hire. But I think that I learned that my mind tends to make things worse. And so now I know that, hey, if I ever go through a situation and I'm stressed out about it, or there's fear that's, confronting me, I can kind of take an out-of-body experience and learn that, hey, I've done this before, and it's not going to be as bad as I think, or that I built up in my head.
Yeah. Even if it's not the same thing as last time, you've gotten
Correct.
through some hard stuff.
Exactly.
And I would say to any business owner out there, you need to know all the different roles of your company. You don't have to be the expert, the master of it. You don't have to be as good as the person you hire, but you should be able to fill in that gap for a month or however long it takes to be able to replace them. And that was part of the trouble that we had. We didn't know the roles, and we were scared to let this person go when we knew that they needed to leave. And so now I become obsessed. I'm literally obsessed with learning about every little thing in our businesses because I want to know every single thing. I never want to be in that position where I feel trapped, like a slave to my business, and I'm really working for my employee because I have to please them. I have to make sure they're always happy and they're drama and they're crazy, right? Like I don't want to be in that position. If you suck, I want to fire you. And I can take the reins if I need to, and I'm going to get through to the next part where I can train somebody else and bring that person in.
When we first started our business, I remember thinking that we're going to get it going, and then we're going to have all these people that are going to come in, we're going to hire them, and then we're going to be like, okay, we're good. It's self-running. It's doing its thing. And I didn't realize how important what you just said was learning every little detail about your business. And is it overwhelming? Yeah. Is it a lot? Yeah. I don't think it's supposed to be easy. I don't think it's supposed to be this little thing, right? You're building upon your skills by learning every different aspect of your business. And I think it's important in order for you to be the leader that you need to be for your business, to know exactly how each role in each department is supposed to be ran, so that you're just not like letting someone just like free reign roam however they want to go, right? You need to be the leader and guide and direct them. And so, I think that's a big takeaway for me is knowing each little department of your business, and like Brett said, having that freedom and capability to just be like, you're fired, like, and it not really making that much of a difference in your life. Knowing that like you can replace them.
Yeah. Another skill set that I learned and that I never knew was a skill set was learning to find the liars, learning to find the crazy people. And I think it's a lot of pain. Like once you experience that, you're like, oh, I'm not going to get burned like
it's
that
trauma.
again.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have this like, oh, you remind me of that person.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's innocent, but sometimes it's like, no, this is a pattern right here, right?
Yeah.
My antenna goes up the first time. And then after that, it's a couple times it's like, okay, we need to have a serious conversation about this person.
Yeah.
And so we've hired, a lot of people, and there's not a small amount of people are crazy.
Majority of people are crazy. Sorry.
There's some nuts out there.
There really are.
We had a person that was saying all sorts of things to get days off. And then just one thing, the stories kept getting bigger and bigger. Your car, my house caught on fire. I'm sick. And then it was like, oh, my son, he's hurting himself, right? Okay, yeah, I get it. Like, go take your time, protect your kid, do what you got to do. And then he came in the next day, my son committed suicide. And he's crying and sobbing, and I'm hugging him and just praying with him and like, my gosh, man, what can I do for you? It was all lies.
Yeah.
It was all crap.
Yeah.
Like the amount of nuts kind of people out there it is so surprising. It's not surprising to me anymore. I don't trust a lot of those people. If I see that in you, I'm recognizing those patterns. And that's a really important skill to have. It's your BS meter. As a business owner, you need to develop your own BS meter.
Yeah, there's a lot of times I pick up on that BS meter. And it's not even just in particularly staff members or team members. It's people within the community or people within the church or wherever you are, right? Where you're building friendships maybe or in a small group. And it's like within me, it's like I'm repulsed by it. I think I know it so well now that I am repulsed. And I literally don't even want to be in the same room with these people because I can feel it. It's that same energy. It's that same vibe. It's just dishonesty. I just don't want to be around it. And so I think that was something that I needed to, it's a muscle, right? It's a muscle that you need to train. And I think that we have done a lot of exercising in that regard. And so that muscle is pretty strong.
So I would say there's a couple lessons that I've learned the hard way from this. The first is always the background check. And you're usually going to get some kind of sob story, right? Sometimes maybe 50-50, they're lying to you again or not. So go with your gut on that. The second thing is checks and balances. I never want to give full, control of a department to somebody and not have somebody, or a system or myself looking over their shoulder. And then the third thing is never giving total control over something that can blow up my business. Like my finances. I never want to give total control, give my books to anybody. I don't want them doing the invoicing. You run the payroll at Platinum. I do all the invoicing on other companies. I never want to give up that control where somebody can have a multi-million-dollar difference by playing with some numbers, right? I think some things like that, you as the owner, you want to be like, oh, I'm passive. Oh, I don't do those kind of things. No. You as the owner, you need to make sure the critical components to your business that you are in control of. You might be able to have somebody do some of this other part of stuff, but you should never put it so much on the back burner or passive in some kind of system that it's just going and people are stealing from you, because they will steal from you.
I think the lessons I've learned are to not trust. I think, and I hate to say that, but I think that I have a natural inclination to just think that everyone is like me, that people are honest and that they want to do the right thing. And so I think realizing that is kind of hard, that most people aren't like that. And you cannot trust anyone who just comes through your door, even when they have the right words to say and they're a smooth talker and they seem like they're the honest, genuine person, especially if they throw in some Christian or religious things your way, right? Because they know who you are and they know what you want to hear. And if they know that like you love Jesus or something and they throw that out there, like that's almost a red flag for me right away. And so initially I thought it was great, but now that I've learned, it's a red flag for me. I second what Brett said. For the second one for me is not letting go of payroll. I think that's an important aspect of your business and making sure that you always have control of the finances. The third thing is for me is learning about narcissism and individuals who are just like pathological liars. I think reading books on these things really opened my eyes to the fact that it's real and the fact that people actually are like this and the fact that people who are actually like this don't even realize they're like this, which is even crazier for me to even think. So once we dealt with individuals like this, I really wanted to understand it because I don't understand it. So reading books on it is really helpful. We've read a couple books on it and it's kind of an eye opener. It kind of actually hurts your stomach a little bit reading it because you're just like, wow, I can't even believe this is real, that people actually live like this. But I think that that's something that really helped me to be okay with it in a way and to accept what's happened in the past and realize that it really wasn't my fault. And I think that was what's hard for me is I felt like a lot of things were my fault because I let this person in our life and our business too long, and that it's okay. And so learning by reading books, educating yourself on the type of people that these people are, their characteristics, their qualities will help you when you're moving forward in your business to not make that same mistake and hire that same type of individual.